Hi, in this video we're going to take a quick look at creating and using rubrics for grading within Google Classroom. Rubrics are basically just a set of criteria that we want to grade our pupils' work against, and so we can quite often align this with our success criteria, for example. Rubrics quite an Americanized word, not so commonly used in the UK, but it really essentially just means a kind of a framework for our assessment. So in our case, we're going to learn how to create a basic rubric, and then I'm going to show you an example of one that's in a classroom and how that looks to use it to grade, and also how it looks to people when you've used it to grade their work. So when you're creating an assignment, as long as you've added a title, this little button here, Rubrics, will light up and allow you to add your own rubric to an assignment. If you click on it, the top option here is to create a rubric, but you'll also see that we have an option to reuse a rubric, which means that we can select a class that we have a rubric already in, and then the assignment that rubric was applied to, and we can reuse and modify and edit that rubric. So if you have a rubric that you've created and you want to make a new one, which is going to follow a very similar structure, that can save you a bit of time rather than having to make them all from scratch. In our case, though, we are just going to create a new one. We're not going to look at importing from Sheets for now. We'll just go to create a rubric, and I'll give you a quick wee tour of the features here. Up at the top right, we can use this to delete the rubric if we need to. You can choose to use or not use scoring depending on whether you want to assign a mark or a grade, or whether you want to just have a feedback description of the pupil's standard of work but not actually give them points. And this simply controls whether the points are arrayed in ascending or descending order in our rubric. Now, below this, we have the actual criterion, and we have one ready for us to fill in here, which is the title, which we will see in the grading view. The criterion description is hidden unless you actually open it to view it, so the criterion title should be short but clear. We should also then add the different levels that we want to use to judge against this criterion. So I'm going to pause this while I just complete the first one and just let you see how that looks. So you'll see I've added the title here and a description of the criteria. So that lets the people understand what they're getting the grade for. And now we're just going to choose which point values we want to apply. So I'm going to add 1, 2, and 3 point, and a 0 for non-completion. And then we can give them a level title. So we can see now that we've added a couple of different descriptions so that the pupil will know why they're getting that number of points. Now, if we are using the same structure for each of our criterion, rather than having to write a whole new one from scratch, we can just go up here and we can duplicate a criterion, and that will allow us to then take maybe this structure here and then modify it a little bit to make it more applicable to whatever the other criterion that we want to assess is, and so on and so forth. You'll also see that if we have a look here, we can delete this criterion and we can move them up and down in the order. So we can sort them and reorder them if we need to. And down at the bottom here, kind of hidden away by my little toolbar, is the add criterion button, which we'd use to add a new blank criterion. So I'll just get rid of this blank one because we don't want it. And then we just simply need to save. And when we've saved that criterion, or when we've saved that rubric, should I say, that will now be attached to our assignment. You'll see that that's there. So when we set that assignment, the pupil will see that rubric. Now I'm just going to quickly show you a slightly more comprehensive one that I've made before. So this is another assignment which has a rubric attached, and this rubric was for a photography class. So some of these don't require any descriptions because it's really just, how many images have they submitted that achieve this expectation. And then as we go down, it's maybe more just a simple yes or no statement, whether something has been completed. And then as we go further down, you'll see that there's some value statements added into there to help pupils understand, the mark ranges that they're landing in here and here. So I'll quickly just show you how that looks if we grade that pupil's piece of work with this particular rubric. So we'll just look at that pupil's assigned work. Now this pupil obviously hasn't submitted anything. I'm just going to fill it in so you can see what's happening. You would obviously be looking at their work as you do this. But we'll see here that it automatically tallies up their score and adds that in there and puts it as a draft. And we could add a private comment if we wanted to, and then when we hit return, the pupil will now be able to see that work that's been submitted back, that's been graded, going back to them with the rubric attached. And if we look at the pupil's view of this, they will actually see that their work has been marked, they'll see their grade, and they'll see the rubric, and they can open these up individually to look at them in more detail. Also bear in mind that when this is set initially for the pupil, they can open this up even before the rubric has been used, and they can still see all of the descriptors. It just won't have actually been filled in and graded. So hopefully that helps you understand how you could use rubrics in your own work. I certainly have found them to be a really big time saver, and they've made me more focused in my marking and probably a bit more consistent. But if you have any queries, obviously you can get in touch and ask.